Okay, hey everybody. I am so excited to have the panel join us. Come on up, everybody. This topic is near and dear to me. When I first got into the cannabis industry, it was because I walked into a cannabis store shortly after legalization in Canada. Coming from traditional retail, looked around the store and was like, what is going on visually here? It's taken about 5 years now to get to a point where I think we're having a conversation about visual merchandising in stores. And so it's with that we want to talk about what are some of the strategies, what are the things that have worked in stores, and how do stores influence the sales and also influence the way that our customers purchase. So maybe starting next to me with Boston, I'm going to have my panel introduce themselves with their name as well as their reference or the number of stores that they currently work with today, as well as any experience that they have had historically in traditional retail.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. My name's Boston Dickerson. Operate a vertical company in Missouri called Show Me Organics. We kind of started with 2 dispensaries and built the vertical backwards. So acquired a manufacturing lab, followed by a cultivation, and we're kind of back to looking for retail growth. So we currently operate 3 stores under the Blue Sage Cannabis Deli brand, and we've got 3 more under development right now. Prior to that, I have about 10 years of experience in retail pharmacy. My family was in retail pharmacies growing up, so from the time I was 10 years old, I was doing books or working behind the counter.
Hi everybody, my name is Brianna Draxler. I am the Director of Retail Experience for Ivy Hall Dispensaries. We currently have 9 stores operating with 1 more on the way. And I've got 15 years of experience in specialty retail. 13 of them were, malls and those kinds of things. And then the last 4 years have been both recreational and medical cannabis. So excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
My name is Laura Jaramillo Bernal. I'm with New Era Cannabis. We're a vertically integrated operator here in Illinois. We currently run 7 stores. We have 2 more on the way. And I actually, other than a short stint at the Gap when I was in high school, didn't really have any retail experience before I joined New Era 5 years ago. And so it's been a little bit of a trial by fire. But I was in TV production, so I was definitely used to thinking a lot about how things looked and what stories they were telling, and I'd like to think that that's helped a little bit, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Hi everybody, my name is Munir Kapche. I'm the chairman of Preach Biotech. We own 19 dispensaries in Puerto Rico. We have been in business from 2016. We also have experience in multiple of businesses like pharmacies also and hospitality, and we have been like trying to take everything from each of those companies in order to get a better experience for our patients.
I sit from a position of working with cannabis retailers across the US and in Canada. And right now our portfolio covers more than 150 stores. And when I was thinking about this panel, I was thinking about how do we use product to tell stories to our customers, and how do our in-stores influence the way that our customers purchase. And I think one of the distinguishing moments that we need to pay attention to with this is that in traditional retail, merchandising actually references inventory and assortment. In cannabis, I very rarely hear that. And so actually visual merchandising is a combination of what we have in store and how we display it to our customers. And so with that, I think it's important for us to think first about why do we have visual merchandising? What role does it play in the store? And I know that Laura, when we were talking prior to this panel, had some thoughts around the importance of visual merchandising from driving sales, what role it creates in creating a customer experience. And maybe we can start there, and then I'm gonna have Brianna jump in and talk about how the store dispensary look and feel can create some differentiation.
One of the things that really struck me when I started working in cannabis back in the early days in Illinois was just how incredibly generic and antiseptic the experience was. I mean, going to a dispensary back in 2019, 2020, for the most part, felt like going to the DMV. Like you were just waiting in line, there's a window, there's nothing to look at. And so when I think about retail merchandising, I really think that it's fulfilling two super important things. On the one hand, it's just creating a better customer experience. Because of all of the regulations in Illinois, we can display very little. Like the things that our customers really want, to see product, to smell it, to be able to see the flower, for the most part, we can't do any of that. But that doesn't mean that you want to sit in a line and stare at the head of the people in front of you until it's your time to come up to pick up, and have a conversation with your bud tender. How can you be at the dispensary, and in that time, even if you have to wait, how can you have a more engaging experience in which you can grow your understanding of the product as a customer? And it's one of the things I tell our employees all the time. I think our bud tenders are such experts and such power users that they forget that a lot of customers are not. And they may know a couple products that they're comfortable with. They always get that. They're a little bit intimidated. It's an extreme information disparity environment in which I may have up to 1,000 different SKUs on my menu, and people are not comfortable. They maybe have smoked joints since the 70s, but they've never done anything other than smoking a joint. And so by using virtual merchandising as a way to let the customer explore and learn a little bit about what else exists there in this brand new era of cannabis, in which there are so many new methods of consumption. There's so many different ways that you can experience cannabis. It's a way of telling them that story a little bit. And maybe the first time that they're waiting in line and that they're discovering that, concentrates are now a thing, or there's such a thing as dry herb vaporizers, they're not going to buy it the first time, but it starts creating an awareness and a level of comfort with the incredible variety of products that you have available. And it's just more interesting, right? It gives you something to look at and to experience while you're waiting. And so from a customer experience, it's a better, more enjoyable experience. And then from the perspective of the store itself, it's an incredibly lost time to have people waiting in line or waiting for their turn or looking around your store and not taking that as an opportunity of really promoting your retail goals and selling what you want to be selling them. And so it's a chance to show them the promotions that you really want to be pushing, the products that are top priority for your retail sales team. It's really an opportunity to put those things that you are trying to promote front and center that would be wasted otherwise.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note too that the bud tenders are the ones that are selling our products and making our companies as successful or as unsuccessful as they want. And so making sure that we have tools that are readily available and things that they can reference when there are 700 to 900 SKUs on each Illinois menu. I think it's really important to highlight that listening to the feedback on how the bud tenders want things merchandised and what helps them when they are selling and having things to reference. Telling that story is very important. And sort of what you said for the earlier times in cannabis, we came from like a turn and burn sterile environment where there was nothing to look at, there was no colors, everything was white walls, get in, get out, don't ask questions. Well, we've got to move past that now, and I think that storytelling and being able to answer the questions and utilizing things such as the product packaging or opening even just accessories as we educate people on how to use a Puffco or things like that, it really aids in that experience. And it's really important to make sure that you listen to the feedback from the customers, but you also listen to the feedback from the bud tenders. It is truly a half and half, a 50-50.
Yeah, I think what you're highlighting is the role that visual merchandising plays, not just in the information for the customer, but also sharing the information for the bud tender. And Manir, you have a lot of data that you can use that would influence the way that the product shows up in store. Talk to me about what that data looks like, what data points have been helpful, and what data points would be helpful in the future.
Yeah, we do have a big BI team, and we focus a lot on data. Every Wednesday we do have a meeting with all of our bud tenders because, frankly, as as Brianna is she's saying, I mean, we see the data, but I mean, we miss the touch when we are sitting in a office and reading only numbers. You miss the touch with the human. I mean, which is probably the most important, is the thing that give you a trend, is the thing that change things, because other than that, we all will be doing the same and the same. So for us, it's very important to have the meeting, not only with the general managers of the stores. We change it 1 week to do other position, because there is always something that we would like to hear, and that's where we create the decisions that are not, that we cannot see them in the data, the driven decision, which is how everybody manages. That's how we get something different. And of course, what Laura was saying, I mean, it's important that the package speaks by itself, and it's important to use your senses, you know, the sight, the smell. I mean, if they can touch it, I mean, all those things. We do have mock-ups. We create an experience in order to differentiate from others, and that's the way we have to innovate always. We are all constantly innovating, and I'm a big believer that the market, I mean, we cannot sell cannabis. We have to sell experience and wave these I mean, surf this wave, you know. That's what I think, till better times come, which I'm sure it will come.
I think how you utilize data can influence the way or the perception of the presentation of the product, or how much room something might have on the sales floor. When you're thinking about giving sight and smell, Boston, you're in a market where you're one of the only people on this panel that can talk a little bit to deli. And I think deli is a really interesting aspect of visual merchandising, because it also is performative. It doesn't exist as only a package, but the experience of selecting deli is also a performative act, almost like if you are going and buying a coffee and watching somebody make the coffee. So when you look at the stores, how has that influenced the way that you approach even merchandising of deli and deli displays in store?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we do operate the majority of our sales through deli-style dispensaries. That has had a lot of impact, you know, operationally and financially. And to start, we did that because I'm a consumer. I love the plant. I believe in it. And that's how I prefer to shop, with all my senses. I like to touch it. I like to smell it. And I like to know what the flavor is going to be like before I leave the store and maybe get home, and what was advertised is not in that jar. So we have seen that be very influential in purchasing decisions. But I think, you know, going back to this holistic approach of retail merchandising, you really have to take into account the demographics in which you're operating. So our store in St. Louis, Missouri, for example, has a lot more competition and is more cutthroat on promotions, and they really want an in-and-out experience. They want it faster there because there's a lot of other dispensaries around that they can get it from quickly. Whereas, you know, our store in rural Missouri in Carthage, people want to drive 25 or 30 minutes past all the other dispensaries so they can come up and they can smell their flower. They're there for an experience. So I think really using that data to know where you're at in the market is extremely important for a decision like deli style versus pre-packed.
When we see the movement of inventory in stores widely different from an urban environment sometimes versus a rural, and if you look at more mature markets and the way that the product shows up in store, it has actually influenced the way that product has sold over time. So if we say, for example, use Colorado, Michigan, California as examples, this trend towards creating impulse shopping moments or increasing the amount of, say, for example, pre-rolls on the sales floor has also created an increase in pre-roll sales. And sometimes that's a great thing, and sometimes that means that the customer is no longer purchasing eights and they have shifted over to pre-rolls, and that has financial impacts as well. And so, Brianna, when you're thinking about creating a display for the store, what is something that has changed over the time that you've been working with the teams, and how you present information when thinking about specifically impulse displays and what is shown at the cash desk?
Yeah, so big thing first is that less is more. And I think that, you know, when you first walk in, and again, going back to the storytelling, you want to make sure that the products that you have available are what is displayed. That's like first and foremost. And two, I think that can you repeat the question? I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought.
No, I'm just what role visual merchandising for the team at Impulse plays, so at the cash desk.
Yeah. So you're going to want to display the things that you want to sell. So going through the reporting and seeing, certain things that give you a better margin or a bestseller versus something that hasn't moved in a long time. It's not like a regular retail environment where if I didn't sell a SKU, I just get to transfer it to a clearance store or something of that nature. And so it's the responsibility of me and my peers to make sure that we're telling the bud tenders, hey, I need you to pick 10 things that you love from this list of things that isn't moving or that is a bestseller, or how, and really making sure that you drive that impact through the bud tender. And so I would say that, storytelling, making sure that things are accessible with, like in reach for the bud tenders. So going back to like if you're having a pre-roll, make sure there's a lighter next to it. Sort of like getting back to the basics when it comes to just the traditional approach for retail,
Customers experience decision paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
And so where we can influence the way that they perceive the information, provide them the extra tools to absorb the information faster, say, for example, the concentrate example we were talking about earlier today, which is present a concentrate with the concentrate accessories, helps also the customer to absorb that information faster and them to identify that that is a concentrate, potentially without needing things like signage. Now, Munir, you've had the opportunity to go through iterations of stores, of different versions of the store.
Yes, of course.
And so how do the stores show up today differently than maybe some of the first stores? What changes did you make to things like cases or where cash desks were in the first stores versus today's?
I like what Brianna said, that at the beginning was something like black and white, and it was an experience like a hard experience. And today, since we use a lot of market segmentation because of the BI that we do, we can get more insight from the patients. And of course, you cannot do something personalized, but you can work toward that. So based on that, yeah, we have seen that they want spaces to be more relaxed, more friendly in order for them to enter, because we have noticed that since we made a lot of M&As, we bought a lot of dispensaries. Some of them were not the same as our brand values of our brands. So we noticed that the market segmentation in each of those dispensaries, even though that they are close geographically, and we learned from those small shops that we bought in order how to improve our others dispensaries. So we always learn. We always try to read more and learn from everybody. We are always open to do that.
Oh, Boston, you maybe don't have the same size portfolio from stores, but you drive a lot of your revenue from the business in through wholesale into other stores. So your business would have a good sense of like what the other stores are looking like within Missouri. What trends have you seen within, for example, Missouri shift over maybe the last 2 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the amount of deli style operators has shrunk over the past 2 years. As I kind of use the comparable of retail pharmacies. 30, 40 years ago, you have all these pharmacies that are like a friendly, independent neighborhood pharmacy. You walk in and everybody knows your name. You're there for the experience. But now, we're to this convenience speed model where you walk into Walgreens or CVS to pick up your prescription. You might not even know who was back there, but the service was fast, they were friendly, and you were in and out. So I think, what we've seen in other markets and Missouri as it's maturing is people are going to that more convenience, speed, in and out, drive through, pick up wherever you can, push things to pre-order so your lobby stays a little bit more accessible for patients. And then on the brand side, it's been interesting. Like Krista mentioned, most of our revenue comes from the brand side, say 85% in Missouri. And we've been toying with ways to help retailers be able to tell our brand story when it gets in there. So one of the most successful campaigns that we've launched is we did a cut your own cola promotion. So we cut down a 15-gram nug and put them on 100 different dispensary shelves across Missouri. And it was the front and center big display piece when you walked in. So a lot of times people don't want to hear about the cannabinoids and the terpenes and get really in depth on it. They walk in and see the shiny ball and say, I want that. So that was a way that we were able to really differentiate from our competitors. We ran that over about a month-long window, and it increased sell-through by over 30% at all those stores that had it. So I think it's important, as you guys have mentioned, to keep innovating and not get stagnant with your current model.
Laura, when you think about like display activities like that, I mean, Illinois is a very different market from a display perspective. What are some of the things that you've done to help your own house brands in store? What role has visual merchandising played in that?
Yeah, that has been a really active pursuit for us. We acquired our cultivation center about, I guess it's going to be 2 years, a little less. And it was a cultivation center that when we first made that acquisition represented only about 2% of sales in our stores. And we knew in order to make the economics of that work, we really needed to dramatically increase the amount of product that was going through our own shelves. And that included creating a whole new set of brands that were new to the market. So, we had our own New Era brand, we had a brand that was more budget friendly. We had a middle of the road brand. We had edibles brands, but they were all new to the market. And we knew that a big part of getting that to grow is just awareness, making people know that these brands existed, making them look exciting. So we spent a lot of time making that packaging and that branding really beautiful. But then we spent a lot of time making sure that people were aware and saw it. And so one of the things we did was created these like big, beautiful posters that were not showing product, but just branding. And we decorated our stores with that. So like you really would be seeing it all over the store when you walked in. We made sure that we had the packaging, of course, on display, but also in a way that represented kind of a hierarchy of what you're buying. One thing, if you're not very actively monitoring what happens with your merchandising in your stores, naturally, what happens is the brands that are most proactive in sending you expensive, fancy displays slowly take over your store because, they sent you a cool neon. And it's like, well, that brand sent me a cool neon, but that's not the brand that I'm interested in really promoting right now. I'm interested in promoting my brand. So let's put the neon in the back, or let's have a contest for our employees to win it because they all love the neon or whatever. And then let's make sure that the number one display that you see when you walk into our store is your own brand, and that it looks great, and that it's not just empty packaging, but it also is reflected in the design of the store in other ways. So that's something that we worked really hard on too. But even beyond, and so that's one thing when it comes to like that vertical integration and working on the kind of share of the shelves. We have a limit here in Illinois. Only 40% of our shelf space can ever be from any one cultivator. And but we've had tremendous success. Like I said, we started at around 2%. Over 50% of our flower is our own flower that we're selling now. In overall of all products together, it's around 35%. So it's obviously only one part of the puzzle of getting there, but it's a really, really effective. But basically, your store is the most effective advertising space that you have, and to just not utilize it is a waste. And the other thing that we thought a lot about, and this has been an experiment we've been pushing a lot this year, is we found actually that so much of the merchandising display that we're doing in Illinois is just empty packaging, and people are really not very interested in empty packaging because it doesn't tell them a lot. And so we decided to do a big of a shift this year into just focusing a lot more on accessories rather than product for merchandising display. And we've managed to go from I think 0.3% of our sales used to be accessories, and we're near 2% now, which sounds small, but it represents hundreds of thousands of dollars of product that you wouldn't have otherwise sold, and product that is more convenient for people. If you come into my store and you don't have to go somewhere else to buy a battery or to buy a lighter or to buy a Puffco, it's a more convenient experience for you, but it's good margins, it's lower tax. We can pay up to 40% taxes in Illinois, and you don't have to do that with accessories. And so we really thought of that as a way that was really effective to fight price compression, which is something we're seeing quite a bit in this market, to protect our margins, and to increase basket sizes in a way that really kind of grew the amount of things that we could buy. And so that's been a really big push for us this year, is rethinking our merchandising space, is simply showing what people are going. Mostly, honestly, such a high percentage of our sales are pre-orders. People are really looking at the menu ahead of time. People really know the product that they're going for. Like, how can we promote more of that impulse buy and grow that basket size as well with the accessories?
Yeah, and just to tag onto that quickly, Laura, like you and I talked in the back, it's important that that communication is transparently sent through the staff when all this is going on. Because as management, a lot of times we can sit behind a curtain and say, we want this grandiose idea. I want 50% of our own house brand product to go through the stores. But if you're not, changing the displays to equilibrate that and transparently communicate to the staff, it's really hard to get those changes to the net revenue.
Brianna, when we were talking about the store having physical space and showing the brands, what we're really talking about is when you walk into the environment, does the environment communicate what we want the team and the customer to absorb? So if we want 50% of our house brand sales is 50% of the product on display house brand. But that also translates to this technology piece, which is the online menu. And so how do you and the team right now work through understanding what is on the online menu, how the customer might have perceived the store before they get to the store, and then connect that online digital menu to the in-store experience?
Yeah, well, in a world of convenience and I want it now, right? Almost half of our sales come from the online menu. And so if you don't have a point person that is constantly going through and making sure that the first couple items that you see on the menu, if the click-through rate, especially the click-through versus the completed sale rate, if those don't match, then we've got an opportunity there, And so having somebody go through often on our best sellers, what's being shown first on the menu, and then when you walk into the store, are you able to, in an Ivy Hall, you can actually go up to our live flower wall. Sorry to pivot a little bit, but in a world where it is so hard for us to show the product before you buy it, we want to make sure that our online menu shows a generic stock flower photo, but that once you enter an Ivy Hall, you're able to actually look at that nug in a locked wall, and that really enhances your experience as well. And so just making sure that you have somebody that's monitoring and constantly refreshing what's going on online as well as in store, both of those things have really aided at least us at Ivy Hall in making sure that our experience is ever-changing, constantly evolving, and really matches what we're seeing people are actually clicking on or actually asking about and adding to their carts,
I think that's a really great way to kind of like close out this, is to also talk about, from a visual merchandising perspective, how frequently the store appears new and fresh to customers. One of the easiest ways to combat discounting and promotions is to offer newness and freshness. And many times our retail environments are very stagnant, and that they're not evolving and changing as quickly as maybe when you walk into a grocery store, or if you walk into, say, for example, Sephora. And those displays are important. Our average customer in cannabis shops between 8 and 12 times a year. And so when they come into the store, is the store looking new and fresh? And so as our last question, as a rapid fire for everybody, what is one thing that you wish you knew 2 years ago about visual merchandising that influences your decisions today? And maybe, Munir, we can start with you.
We are using a lot of like virtual reality, and that's something that we didn't use before, and I think that's making a difference in our customers and our patients because they really like to interact with that. So I think that it has been that's one of them.
I think you went high end, I'll go low end. I think 2 years ago when I was thinking of how we would redo and redesign our stores, I was overwhelmed by, getting $40,000 custom millwork quotes and all these like fancy displays. And it took me a while to realize, like maybe you're building a new store and you have the budget and that's the ideal way to do it, but there's a lot scrappier, faster ways that you can really change the look of your store, literally with Wayfair and display cases that you buy and everything, and it works and it really influences the shopping decisions that people are making. And you can be in an environment I think a lot of people in the industry knows is tight. You can make it fast. You can try things fast. You can experiment, and it doesn't have to be like an insane Apple Store display for that to work.
Yeah, I would say that the customer knows best. I think sometimes when the people that are so far removed from the stores, we often are like, oh, this is my favorite strain, or this product packaging looks amazing, or whatever, and we have a lot of influence on how things are placed. But a lot of the times the customers will tell you if something is going to sell or if it's not, and you're going to see that. And so using the feedback that you get from the customers, whether it's from reporting or word of mouth, they know best.
Yeah, and lastly, I'll just close with, I think it's important, this has been across not only retail but wholesale for me. I've learned over the last 5 years, you really have to have a concrete goal in mind. There's so many variables that you're changing across all aspects of this business, or if you're trying to make your product be the 40% shelf space product in the store, that if you don't have a clear narrative of goals, before the quarter, you won't have clear results because you've been changing too many variables and can't go back and point to one strategy that increased or decreased sales.
It is with that, I want to thank all of you for being here, as well as the panelists for sharing all of your insights today. We are so glad to be here.
Thank you.